Welcome to Courtside Moms. I am your host, Wendy Sparks. Today, I have the utmost pleasure of spending time with Natalie Williams, mother of Saben Lee of the Detroit Pistons. Natalie, welcome.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for coming on the show to share with us your journey with getting Saben to the NBA. So, with that said, let's go back a bit. And what age was he when he was first introduced to basketball?
Well, I will tell you this. His first word was not mom. It was not dad. It was ball. Uh, and that was all he was asking for. And was a bundle of energy. I can remember him being about 3 or 4, and he had some other friends. He was younger. He had some friends that were older, and they could all play in the YMCA league. And it's when they had the wristbands and they would match up. And he was too young. And he was really upset by that. He would cry when he would see all his other friends getting a chance to play, and we go watch their games. He's like, "When's my game? When's my game?" So for his 4th birthday, I rented out the Y and actually staged a basketball game with all of his friends. And we had family members that refed, and we had a couple of adults because they were all really little at that time. We had a couple of adults that were out on the court. And so we actually called the names out, Saben Lee, number 2, and he would run out on the court, and everybody ran out on the court. And I think honestly, that was his best birthday and when he was the most happy. But from a really young age, he's always had that passion. He tried other sports, but basketball was the one thing that he always gravitated toward.
Well, first of all, Mom, that is the coolest birthday party I've heard of for any child of that age. Here the rest of us thought McDonald's was it. And to hear you stage an actual basketball game, I love, love, love it. So it's like at that young age, it was just naturally manifested for him. And look where he is now. So, dare I ask, when did basketball become competitive for him then? And when did he start playing at that level? Because it sounds like it was at that game.
Yeah, so that started it in that next year, and then the next year, I guess. Well, let me start that to answer that question again. So yeah, the next year he was actually able to play in the Y, and so he started in the Y and went all the way up until I guess AAU started. So maybe it got competitive when he was about 4th grade, and he had his first competitive team, but he was always the youngest, so he was always playing up. And I will slip up and call him Peanut because he was a little peanut. Like literally, when he was born, he was 6 pounds 7 ounces, so he was a little peanut. And then it took a bit for him to grow. So even in all of the AAU games, he was always the smallest, the shortest, but had that spirit, that fire, that tenacity, where he wasn't going to let his size stop him. And I think it continued all throughout.
He's like, what size? I'm
Exactly.
Saban and I'm playing, period. So
That's
good for
right.
him.
That's
Good for
right.
him. So let's move a little bit forward now to his high school days. Where did he play? And what was it like for you to watch those games?
Yeah, so he played at Corona del Sol High School in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, Tempe, Arizona, but he was in the Chandler, Tempe area. And when we were making decisions about where he wanted to go to high school, one of the things that I knew is that he had to be challenged both intellectually and physically through basketball. So we had to find that perfect intersection of, academics so that he could get into, competitive colleges, but also that he had that physical challenge as well. And Corona met both of those. They were at the time the defending, state champions. They had won a couple of back-to-back championships. Unfortunately, Saban didn't get the opportunity to win a state championship, but they went, all the way to the playoffs, and so he got a little bit of that experience. And so that was really the motivation and the decision around Corona.
Wow. Okay. And then moving forward, tell us about his college recruitment period. Do you remember him getting his first letter and who it was from? Just
Well, I'll tell you this. Saban, it's always been one of these like David and Goliath underdog stories. So he always says his mantra is run your race. And the turtle is like his picture of him running his race. At the end, you'll get there, but it seems really slow going. And so Saban blossomed a little bit late. I don't think he actually hit 6 feet until maybe his junior year of high school. And so we didn't know. We didn't know if he was going to grow. We didn't know if he was going to get beyond, 6 feet. But it was the summer between his sophomore and his junior year where he said, Mom, this is my summer. This is my summer to, really stand out, that I'm going to go to these tournaments and I'm coming back with a scholarship. And, of course, as a mom, you're saying, okay, well, yes, great.
yep.
You've got that determination. I'm all in. I'm there supporting you. And he did. He had 6 offers. And I want to say the first offer was Weber State.
Okay.
And then he had, offers from Grand Canyon. And so they were, low D1 is when he started out. But coming back, and I think that's when it hit me that, okay, he's going to take that next step. He's going to play in college. He's going to realize his dream. And so that was for him, his determination between sophomore and junior year, that I'm going to go to these tournaments and I'm coming back, with a scholarship to college. And then that next summer, it was, okay, now I want to come back with very, specific, like I want to
Right.
have high level, D1 competition. And he had always had a dream of playing in the SEC. He knew that, there was that, competition. And so when he was thinking about where he wanted to go, he didn't know, but he knew that the SEC had, a standard of competition. What's the word? Everyone played with a little bit of an edge, and he always
Mhm.
played with a little bit of edge. And so when we were looking at potential opportunities, it was either Stanford or Vanderbilt. Those were the two that he
Right.
was choosing from, and he had several others that he was looking at, but it really came down to those two.
Well, Vanderbilt. Okay. Let's talk about the return to Vanderbilt. What was it like for you to go back now to your alma mater years later and just be proud that your child chose the same school that you had previously gone to? So, what was that like for you, Natalie, to walk on the campus grounds and go down the same halls that you once did, but now to watch your son play basketball?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I think Saban will be the first to say he did not choose Vanderbilt because his mother graduated from law school at Vanderbilt. Like, he will always say that. And there was no pressure. But I told him that he would know what was the right fit for him and then just be led by that. He had selected really top choices. It didn't matter to me at that point, whichever college he chose, but I wanted it to be a place where he felt like he could contribute and take that next step towards his dream. And he just felt like Vanderbilt, Nashville, the city felt like a home away from home for him. And so being there, the culture, and most sons, it's all about the food too, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
when things are stressful and when things aren't going well, it's the comfort food. And Nashville had, in addition to a very strong Vanderbilt having a strong academic program, strong basketball program, also had the bonus of really great places to eat. So oftentimes when he wasn't on the court, or he wasn't, practicing or studying, he was finding some really great places to eat.
So now talk about the fan base at that school. Was it well, when you attended that school, did you ever just happen to attend basketball games?
I went to one or two, and they talk about Memorial Magic, and I completely forgot about the court and how the
Mhm.
court is a little bit elevated, and the fans, are actually right at almost eye level with the court in some areas. And so when I
Oh,
went back into the gym for the first time, it was amazing. It was like, wow, my son is actually playing on this court. I, stepped into it maybe a couple of times while I was at law school, but just I think there's nothing like, from the perspective of a mom, seeing your child fulfill their dream. And that was like the
yeah,
first really big step, right? In order to
yeah.
get to that next level, you first have to,
Mhm.
play in college, and, all of the emotions, hoping that this is the right decision and that everything is going to work out. And how is he going to manage, the ups and downs and the rigors of academic and the stress and all of that. And I think those are the emotions that you don't really think about,
Yeah.
as a mom. But once he was in the middle of it, all of those emotions, came out.
Wow, you're just bringing me back as well. So, so after now him playing there for 3 years, how did the decision come about for him to leave and declare for the NBA draft?
Yeah, I think this is one of the moments where I think, as a mom, I told Saban that the best compliment I could give him as a mother is saying that I learned from him. And throughout that process, I learned so much about him, and I learned how he was really evolving into a young man and
Yeah.
making some of those decisions. And I told him that making the decision, and he said, "Mom, at the end of the day, I have to bet on myself." And so Saban's story, he was one of those where no one expected him to get drafted. And actually, they told him that he should go back to college, and that, why is he going into the draft? Is he ready? Is he, good enough? Or he needs to work on this aspect of his game. And at the end of the day, I told Saban that I would support him 100%, and that it needed to be a decision that he made. This is his dream, his lifelong
Yeah.
dream. And as a mother, you can't say, well, no, maybe you do need to go back. Because what if he had made the decision to go back and it didn't turn out, the way that he had hoped? So at the end of the day, I told him that this is solely your decision, and 100% I will support you. And so he said, I'm going. I'm going to declare, and I'm going to bet on myself. I know how hard I work. I know my work ethic. And so he decided to sign with an agent. And from there, he worked all summer and did not let up. And it was amazing to see, when you see your children becoming your teacher and showing them how to showing I mean, he showed me how to overcome adversity. There were some things that were challenging and difficult for me at the time, in my work. And I'm like, look at your son, look at what Saban is doing, and look at how
Yeah.
hard he's working. And it's like, no, turn it around, Natalie. If your son can do it, you definitely can get through this. So when your child becomes your teacher, it's just a beautiful and amazing thing.
It really is. We think that only we teach them, and then they introduce us to something that we never really fathom. I mean, I played basketball, but for me, once I got to the college level, I got offers and I wasn't interested. For me, it was like, no, I'm staying where I'm at, and that was it. And that was for me. Years later now, I have this child who actually has an opportunity to go further. And I was like, wait, this is actually a possibility. This is actually
Right.
something that can happen. This is, you know what I mean? And for me, like you said, he taught me so much about basketball, and I was just so elated that I was actually able to see it at a different level, because for me, I guess in my mind at the time, once college was finished, I was done. It didn't matter to me anymore. I would watch it on TV, turn it off, and go about my day. Where now I'm like, wait a minute, those same games that I watched
That's right.
back then are the things that my son was teaching me about as he was growing up, and now he's actually on the court playing. So our kids forever teach us everything we know, right? And you know what I
Right.
mean about sports, about basketball, stuff
Absolutely.
like that, right? So
Absolutely.
so With his father's experience of being a professional athlete, as he had played for the Detroit Lions, yes, it's a different sport, but he knew what was required of a pro athlete. Um, did that prepare Saban a little more for what was to come?
I think so. So I think Saban had the best of both worlds. He had a father who had navigated it before. It was in the NFL, but similar, similar demands, physical, mental, all of that,
Yeah.
the path to stay, in the league, and everything that you go through, and, the hard work that is needed to get there.
Yeah.
And so I think Saban, channeled all of that and had that in terms of his, his mindset. And then, he had mom on the other side that was the constant, cheerleader supporter. Yes, you can do it. Everything's going to work out. And dad's like, yes, you have to work harder. You can do it, but you need to work harder, and consistently, pushing him. And one of the interesting things, and it's amazing how things, come full circle. So his dad played in the NFL in Detroit. Saban has a tattoo on his chest, and it's a picture that I took of the two of them walking down the street in front of the house that we had in Detroit. And Saban, I mean, he's a little thing, like 18 months, not quite 2 years, or just over 2 years. And he's walking. And at that young age, his dad had the basketball under his arm, and they were headed to the court because that's truly, what he wanted to do. And so I think they always had that connection and that passion and that desire to play at the highest level. And so that definitely gave Saban that confidence in knowing that at the end of the day, you just have to bet on yourself. And if you believe that if you believe in your skills, if you believe in your ability, if you believe in your work ethic, then just make it happen. And I think that's what he did, that summer after he, declared. He just said, I'm going to make it happen. And it even started, like he said, when he was a sophomore, in between his
Yeah.
sophomore and junior, he said, Mom, I'm coming back with scholarship offers. And he just decided, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make a run at it. And somehow I'm going to make it. And his faith too. I mean, we haven't even touched upon just who he is as a man of God, but his faith as well.
Yeah. And you know what? I just love that because there's a difference when you want to play, you know what I mean, than when you want to play. And there's a lot of hard work that goes with becoming a pro athlete. And you have a lot of kids out there. I mean, I remember my son playing AAU and playing college, and everybody said they wanted to go to the NBA. Everybody.
Right.
But I would look at their work and what they did, and the amount of basketball they put in their day was completely different. And sometimes I would say to my son, okay, maybe it's a little bit much. And not because of anything other than the fact that I was like, oh, well, you don't seem to be having fun, like in my mind. And he was like, I'm having a great time by myself on the court after practice when everybody else is gone and they're hanging out doing whatever they're doing. And I realized this is what he wants. This is his dream. And he knew that it took just a little bit more. So I was blessed I didn't have to push him to get there. He put
Right.
himself there. For him, it was just he was always walking around the city with the ball. We always heard him coming up the street. We always knew where he was. I never had to look for him.
Oh,
Never, because I knew that his goal was to play in the NBA. And he kept saying, and this is from a child when he was younger that didn't like
mhm.
basketball. So as he got older, he was like, nah, once he was sold to the idea, he was sold and he never looked back. So I love that you're saying with Saban, he understood what he needed to do and the work he needed to put in to get, you know what I mean, to get himself a spot on a roster, which millions try to get on,
I
right?
know. I know. Yes.
So Saban at that time, we're talking about draft time, was facing the possibility of not being drafted as he had not appeared in many mock drafts. Then the combine was postponed due to the pandemic. So, with not having the opportunity to go back to school, how was he able to keep his name in the pool of prospective draft prospects?
Yeah. So I would say a couple of things. One, I mean, you're right. I mean, Saban didn't even get an invite to the combine. He didn't get
Yeah.
invited. And I remember as a mom, you're praying, you're like, God, I don't know what you have in store for him, but, just, I know you won't put more on him than he can handle. But, this is a lot. He's really going
Yeah.
after his dream. And so Saban went through that. And as a mom, you go through that with him. And, the faith, it just kept coming up. And he's like, God, I'm
Yeah.
trusting you and I'm trusting my work and I'm going to keep working. And so each little milestone, when you'd have that glimmer, it's like, okay, they're not going to have the combine. Okay, they are going to have the combine or not, but it's going to be a little bit different. And, how is this going to work? And, you still get invitations and you can go and you can show up. And I think Saban's agent was really helpful in that. And he kept Saban grounded and just said, keep working. I see you. I know what you're capable of. And remember, this is a long-term game. It's not just the short term. And you will have an
Right.
opportunity, to show, what you're capable of and just be ready. And so I think that really helped Saban understand. And then they still had all of the interviews. And he was doing a great job on all of the interviews with the teams and getting to know him and his humbleness in his spirit. It was that perfect combination of, humility, but that fire, that focus, that tenacity. One of Saban's quotes that I think inspired him on his journey when he was in college. It's an Albert Einstein quote, and it's simply this: adversity introduces a man to himself. And he
Mm.
said, Mom, I know who I am. And I said, yes, you do. You absolutely know who you are. And so what Saban's agent told him is that you've been through the fire. You have had to come back and fight for everything and work hard for everything that you have achieved. And you can't replicate that.
Yeah.
And he's had that experience over and over from high school all the way, through college, and finding himself in a position where in his junior year he's coming off the bench. And he had started in, all of the games
Yeah.
previously. And he's like, wow, what's this about? And I said, son, you asked God to prepare you for the next level. Trust that this is that preparation.
Yeah.
And when you step on the court, you give it everything that you have and you don't let up. And that just became his mantra. It was like, no matter what he was faced with, he was going to continue to work hard. He was going to continue to grind it out. And I think that's the message that he wants to leave with, young men and women coming up. That if you have that dream, you continue to work at it, you work hard at it, and you don't allow adversity to be a setback. You grow out of adversity and you allow it to make you stronger and make you better. And I think his story and his pathway, I mean, every indication was that he was going to go undrafted. And he was fine with that. He said, they just need to see me. And if I go undrafted, I go undrafted. And so on draft day, of course, it's the middle of the pandemic. I was in Dallas, he was in Phoenix training. And so, we all are, at my mom's in the backyard. And I said, okay, what do you want on draft day? You want me to order something? He's like, actually, Mom, I just want you to grill. Let's just grill some hot dogs and hamburgers and let's sit out and roast marshmallows and all that. So we're in the backyard, it's just another
Mhm.
day and we're watching the draft. And then we get the text message, and we're all like, oh my goodness. And so in that moment, I mean, I get emotional now just thinking of it, but
Mhm.
feeling and seeing your son realize his dream is the most beautiful thing, especially when you know how hard he worked,
Yeah.
how many nights he spent on his knees just praying, like, God, show me the way. Am I doing the right thing? This is what you have for me? And then to see, like, not only were you were drafted in the second round, the 38th pick, and it was just amazing. So we were just
Yeah.
overcome, with emotion. And that's when I say, truly your child is your teacher, that he never once doubted himself.
Yeah. I love that.
I'll say that again. That was my light falling off. But yeah,
Yep.
he never once doubted himself. He prayed about it. He had that discernment in his heart, and he's like, I believe this is for me. I
Yeah.
believe this is where I'm supposed to be. And I said, son, if you feel that, then that is where you're supposed to be.
I love that. I mean, I'm listening to your story and the way he dealt with the stress and the adversity. And the reason why I'm saying stress because in 2020, I mean, the NBA was faced with so much drastic changes with the
Yeah.
postponement of the season to July in the bubble, and then the draft taking place in November, which is 5 months after its
Yes.
traditional occurrence in June. So, you know what I mean? So to for a player, an athlete, that's so stressful because
Yes.
now their dream is getting further and further and
Right.
further away, and especially when nobody knew when things were really gonna happen, you know what I mean? And then even if you're given a date, there was always that risk that it could just get cut off and go away again because of the pandemic, right? So it's like,
That's
"Am I
right.
gonna get to the NBA? Am I not gonna get to the NBA?" And at that point, you can't stress what you can't control. So you just hang on to that faith because, like you said, he knows his talent. He knows who he is as a player. And look where he is today. I mean, here he gets called 38th to, I believe it was Utah first, and then he traded
Yeah,
to the Pistons
that's
on
right.
that night. So as mom, I mean, I can just imagine your joy. Like you said, when you're looking at your teacher and you're just like, wow, you
Yeah,
taught me, especially these past couple of months, how to deal with all of this, and now
all of it.
look where you are. So that
Well, and
moment
you
to
took me
me,
back. Like, I forgot about all of those emotions with, like, the delay. And
mhm,
that was, oh my gosh, it was, is it going to happen?
yeah,
Are we actually going to have a draft? Are we actually going to have a season? How are we going to work this all out? And so then there were those thoughts of, well, when is this going to happen? What is it going to look like? And it was just going back to, Saban, it's going to be fine. All you do is control what you can control. You just keep
yeah,
working and you work hard at it. And if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. But yes, there was that constant, self talk and that positive energy that we were pouring into it. That the NBA is going to figure it out. They'll figure out a way, and they did. They
yeah,
absolutely did.
yeah. We look at our kids when they're younger and they figure, you know what, one day I'm gonna be up there with the commissioner and he's gonna give me my hat and I'm just gonna be playing. And yet here COVID just removed all that. But he still had the same end goal.
That's
You know what I
right.
mean? Like, for him, it was like, "Whatever." I I still got on a roster. I still someone
Right.
valued my talent.
Mhm.
Someone looked and said, "Saben Lee is someone that I need on my roster or
Right.
what we need who we need," you know what I
Yeah.
mean, as part of our team. So talk about his rookie season and what was it like for you to finally see your son as an NBA player?
I was trying to think at what moment it actually sunk in, and I think in some ways it's just still sinking in. It's a process, and I remember watching a game, and I'm like, Saban's guarding LeBron James. I'm like, he's guarding LeBron James. I'm like, oh my gosh, what in the world? And then watching him, he was guarding Russell Westbrook. He had Russell Westbrook, in his room, the big poster of Russell Westbrook. And I think at that moment, it was amazing to see it unfold.
Yeah.
And it's still unfolding, right? And,
Yes.
always we're just so just grateful because the Pistons, they were the ones, they selected him, they chose Saban. Yes, we see you, we see the work in you. And I think that's what is the beautiful part of that is
Yeah.
there's something to be chosen and selected and actually drafted. And,
Yeah.
of course, Saban will say, it doesn't matter how I get there. Or, you know, kids will say, I just want to get there. but being drafted, there's just something about, that emotion, and that knowing that there was a team out there, the Detroit Pistons, who saw value in me and who sees me as a part, of their future. And they talk about Saban being a part of that core four, and this process that they're going through in rebuilding. And no, it's not a rebuilding, it's a restoration.
There
Make
you
sure I
go.
get that right. Restoring. And so, Saban is there now, and he's training, and in some ways, it's similar to his journey. It's that work ethic, that continuous process of evolving his game and getting better, and understanding, how he fits in to the makeup of the future of the Pistons. And he's up for it. And so when I talked to him and I asked him, I'm like, what is it like? And he said, Mom, it's just a continuation of what I've always done. It's the hard work. It doesn't stop. You continue, to work hard. I mean, there's some business components and business aspects to it, but at the end of the day, it's my talent, it's my work ethic, and being able to contribute, to a team and allow the team to win and be a part of this restoration process. That's what charges me. That's what gets me excited, is now what's this next level of my
Yeah.
game, and how am I going to contribute?
So he is on a two-way contract. So how does he adapt to playing for both the Pistons and the Motor City Crews? And what keeps him motivated? I mean, because he's on two teams. They're different.
Yeah.
They're different levels. Um, they have different needs, and he
Mhm.
has two distinct roles. So again, what keeps him motivated and how does he adapt?
Yeah. So actually, the interesting thing is, his first year, he was on the two-way contract his first year, but he actually didn't play in the G League at all.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that season, he signed the multi-year contract, and so now he's getting the exposure on both. And I think the way that Saban adapts to it is that, one, it's understanding why he's there and how it's going to elevate his game. And he just wants to play. And
Yeah.
it's just, another set of, his brothers, his players, that he can support, contribute, and show some leadership. So it is a little bit head spinning sometimes. And it's like, wait, where are you going to be? There's been times when we're like, okay, we're coming to see you. And he's like, no, Mom, I'm not going to be in Detroit. I'm actually going to be here. And so it's, trying to keep up with all of that. But I think right now, Saban sees himself as just absorbing as much as he can
Yeah.
about the game. And part of that is being flexible, right? And part of that is understanding that the demands are going to be different, and that adaptability and being able to adapt. Okay, one day you may be playing with the Pistons. The next day you're playing, with the Crews. The next day you're back with the Pistons. I think in one week he had 3 games back to back. He played one night with the Pistons and then turned around and played, the next early morning, late morning with the Crews. And so I think it's just him understanding how to take in information quickly, translate it in real time to game like scenarios, and be able to produce. And that adaptability, that ability to adjust, that ability to support different compositions of players and understand those needs. It's just another layer of development that I think he's fortunate to have.
Absolutely. I mean, him playing with the Motor City Cruise, I mean, he's still getting his reps that
Right.
he need, you know what I mean, to stay in the game and
Absolutely.
to stay, you know what I mean, to stay busy, to stay physical, to stay
Yes.
ready. So, I mean, he's when he plays in the G League, I mean, I believe it was this year he was the lead scorer, right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
looking at 40 points a game and you know what I mean? So
It, I'm telling you, it's hard to keep up sometimes. And yeah, he and I think in one of those weeks where he was playing back to back, he scored in the 30s, but he was averaging, when he first came on, like 38 or 40 points a game. So being able to get those reps in, being able to hone his skills as a point guard, and try out some things as well. Some new things that
Yeah.
he's been working on in his game has been great for his development. And it lets him know he uses each game as information. And so when we,
Yes.
process and, talk about it, it's like, okay, just what information did you gain that you're going to take with you to the next one? And so it's just that constant improving and getting better, and not looking backwards, taking what you did the day before and using it
Yep.
to move you forward.
Absolutely. So you've been by your son's side as he has been navigating the life of a professional athlete. What, in your opinion, is the toughest aspect that these athletes face in their careers?
Um, I would say that, even from just family and individuals, like everything is on display. Um, and it's where else is your professional career public, right? Usually when you go to your job and you're working, it's like you do it in your office or what have you. But for them, playing the sport, playing the game that he loves, it's very public, and that's part of it. You feed off the fans, you feed off that energy. And I think for Saban, and in talking to him, one of the things that he has been very conscious to do is to not allow social media to get in his head, positive or negative.
Mm,
He said, I don't want to hear the accolades, and I don't want to hear, all of the things that, could be going wrong. So I just want to stay focused on, my team, what it is that I need to do to get better, and my coaches. And so he's not on Twitter. It's funny. It's like he took a break from Twitter, I think, when he was in undergrad, but and maybe it was even high school, but it's been a really long time. And I'm taking a break. And he said he made a conscious decision to do that because there are influences that can come in that you're not
mm,
even aware of. And so he is on Instagram, but again, it's one of those like teachable moments. It's like, what level of maturity, is that? He's like, no, mom, I don't want to hear it all. I'm like, yeah, there'll be always someone that says, oh, you're doing great, you're doing great. And then there may be people saying that you need to work on, this, that, or the other. He's like, I know the focus that I need, and there's just not room for all of that on either
yeah.
side. And so I think his level of maturity, and how he puts those blinders on when he needs to, so that he can really focus on his evolution and getting better, and working with the coaches on what he needs to do and navigating all of that. um, I've been most impressed, I think, with that, on his journey, because
Mm,
that's tough.
yeah,
That's really tough for individual athletes to do.
it is. Because unfortunately, they can't unsee the bad and they can't unhear all the negativity that's being told to them. Whether they believe it or not, or whether they really
Right.
soak it in, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's
That's
just,
right.
it's once it's out, it's out. You hear it, right? So it's good that he's able to say, you know what? Right now, my focus is me. I have a job to do
Right.
and I have to keep my thoughts here. Not every athlete's strong enough to do that. And when I say strong, it is so true
Yeah.
because nowadays we are so just like I'm not sure the word to use, but we need it's like we're addicted to the internet. We're addicted to social
Right.
media, right? So especially when you get to a certain level of celebrity, especially when you're in the public eye.
Mhm.
So here we have our kids that how is it not
Right.
amazing when you get, I don't know, 50, 60, 70,000 followers? You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
how can you really walk away from that? It takes a strong individual. So for him to say, I don't care. I right now need to focus on Saban because everybody else's focus is what I need for me. So good for him. So, what support do you think that he depends on you to provide him?
That's easy. There's one thing that I do without fail, among other things, but before every game, I record a prayer. And so I record a prayer and I give him, just those words of encouragement. And I try to be led by what might he need, today. And so before every game, that's what he listens to and he reads the message. And that's the gift that I wanted, to give to him is that it's
Mhm.
that quiet time. It's that time before things get busy, things get crazy, before you even walk in onto the court, where you get quiet and you get centered and you just ask, allow me, to be ready for whatever is presented to me on this particular, day. And it's mainly about him staying faithful. And he already has it, within him. The message may change a little bit, but it's the same message at its core, that you have everything that you need. And as long as you stay connected to that source of your power and your strength, and you maintain that faith in God, and continue your walk, that that path and where the path leads to. And I think honestly, that's how you're able to navigate everything that comes up, because you're going to have those games that don't go the way that you want them to go. And he's hard on himself. Most athletes are hard on themselves. So they'll probably
Yes.
always have those games where they can think, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. And it's just making sure that he stays grounded in taking that next step. Like, okay, yes, that may be what you wish for, what you want. Now, what's that next step? What's the next step you're going to take in your evolution as an athlete? What's the next step you're going to take in your evolution as a man of God? What's the next step you're going to take as, being, someone who's very active in the community? So the core of who you are right now and where you're spending a lot of your time is in the NBA. It is, honing your craft. It is getting better, but you're also much bigger than that as well. So it's trying to keep all of that in balance. And it's so hard. It's really hard, to keep all of that together. And, he's 22 and he's just, getting started on this journey. And yes, I've certainly been proud of, and I am proud, so proud
Yeah.
of the young man he is becoming. But I have no idea, what the future holds, but I do know how hard he's going to work, and usually what he puts his mind to, and when he focuses on that, good things come from it.
Absolutely. So there is such big joy in raising professional basketball players. And as mom, you play such a significant role in your child's success. So what is something that you've learned about yourself throughout this journey by sharing your most surprising or inspiring things that you've learned so far?
Oh my goodness. I think that in reflecting kind of on my life, and wanting, your child, your son, to um not make the same, I don't even want to say mistakes, but sometimes you want to accelerate that growth for them, right?
Yes.
And you want to say, oh, well, wait, but have you thought about this or that? And so I think that what I learned most in terms of raising a black male and raising my son, who happens to be playing in the NBA, is that the greatest gift that I can give him is telling him that I trust him,
Mm.
and I believe in him, and that inside, at the end of the day, what it is that you want, and you have my support 100%.
Yeah.
And there may be some, decisions that you're thinking, oh gosh, should he do that, should he not do that? But then I have to remind myself, this is his journey, and he seems to always figure it out, work it out. And I think as a mom, that's one of the things that I had to learn, is that he's a young man, and he's smart, he's intuitive, he's very insightful, and he knows better what he needs in his life, and to just to trust that and be there as, that guide and that coach and that support. I always want, to be the place where he feels home. Like, I don't ever want him to think that there's any pressure or anything that he has to worry about, whatever it is that he's going through, or if he needs to share or talk about. I want him to feel like there's one place for sure that
Mhm.
I know
Yeah.
that I can go, and all's going to be good in the world, because somehow, it'll work itself out, or mom will say that one thing that I need to hear
Mhm.
that will, keep me going. And I think that as moms, as mothers of professional basketball players, that's the big role that we play. I mean,
Yeah.
we are, and you hear almost every professional player talks about that role of my mother. And I think that's what they expect from us. They expect us to be that one constant, that rock, that source of love, that source of everything good.
Yep.
And also, when we need to be able to tell them the truth as well. The one person that they know, that if I go and if I talk to mom, she's going to just tell me exactly like it is, but also encourage me along the way. And I think that's probably in terms of my journey, being a mom and learning and just kind of evolving through this process. It's knowing when to lean in, when to let go,
Yeah.
and when to just listen and be there for support.
Oh, 100%. No matter how old our kids are, they always look to us for that safe space, that
Yes.
place where they can always come and get the truth. And like you said, it's always the authentic truth. So whether it's good or bad, they know that it's coming from a place out of love, and they trust the information that we provide them. So that safe space is really, really important, irregardless of their age. So for me, I just love that you said that, because it is so true. Our kids are always going to be our kids. So, in
Yes.
conclusion, before we get to the fun facts, tell us, what is it like being the courtside mom to Saben Lee?
Oh my goodness. I am the mom. I started to have his jersey on because I am the mom that goes to the games. I'm like, I've got my piston shoes, I've got the jersey, I've got the hat.
Yeah.
I am the rah-rah cheerleader. Let's go. Giving him the thumbs up, giving him that look like keep fighting, whatever it is that's coming up. As moms, you can read every emotion and you know
Mhm.
exactly what they're thinking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's still thinking about that last play. It's like, stay focused on, the future. So I think I try to have that balance, but when he looks up this in the stands, I want to make sure that he sees this big smile, beaming, telling him just go for it. Just
Yeah,
keep going, keep driving. What No matter what the current state of affairs is in the game, don't give up, keep fighting. So yes.
absolutely. Do you. You're here for a reason. Like you said, you bet on yourself. Now do exactly what you've been drafted to do.
That's
So,
right.
and like you said, and they can look up and see moms there waving and cheering. And I always say, I wonder if my son can find me. And somebody said to me, yeah, there could be a million people in this arena. You're the one screaming the loudest. So everybody knows
Absolutely.
who the moms are. So, and that is true. So let's learn some fun facts. What is Saban's go to dish that you make that he must always have?
It's so funny. I was about to mention that because it's gumbo.
Oh,
Yes. So anytime it's, well, it's gumbo or it's a crab boil, but usually it's one of those two things. So whenever he's, stressed, or even when he's not stressed, it's mom, are you gonna come and are you gonna make that gumbo? Are you gonna make that crab boil? So yes, those are the two things.
okay. Other than a basketball. What is one childhood item he couldn't live without?
His Legos. So Saban, he started out as an engineering major at Vanderbilt, and I mean, there's just no way that he could juggle both. So he would build these elaborate, Legos, and he was into robotics. So yeah, it was either the basketball or it was the Legos, and he would stay up all night and build these structures.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
First time I've heard that answer.
right.
I love that. Did he have a nickname? And if so, what was it?
Yes. So the nickname from mom is Peanut. And
Yes.
actually, the funny thing is, the nickname from dad is Sabo. And so when he got to Detroit, everyone started calling him Sabo, and they had no idea that that's what his dad called him. So you'll hear everyone calling him Sabo.
Okay, I'll have to no, it's Peanut. That'll be me.
He's gonna hate it. It's like, why did you say that? But
Yeah. He's like,
they're
"Really, mom?"
nicknames.
That's it, that's it.
Yeah.
Now advice questions. So, what advice would you give to another courtside mom about how to deal with a coaching decision that she does not agree with?
Ooh, you said a coach's decision.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Personal experience is that I have I've had to just let that go. I have had to let that go, and depending upon, the age of, the your son, but yeah, I think that's the line. There is a line or a boundary that you have
Mhm.
to set and you have to establish where it's that's my son's journey, and that he is in the best possible position to actually advocate, for himself and navigate it. And so what I have to always remember is that in my limited view and vision, I don't see the whole picture. I don't know what the coach is dealing with. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know what's happened in practice. And so I really, if my son is coming to me, that's one thing, and we process through it, and we talk about it. But it's really hard. I think that's one of those times where you just have to kind of let your child, like, let him have that
Mhm.
experience, and it's part
Right.
of their growth and part of their maturation, process, and setting, those boundaries. And again, it's like you're seeing that coach's decision in one isolated instance,
Yep.
but you just don't know what all may have happened, behind the scenes. And as difficult and as challenging as it may be, and usually, as moms or as parents, you're looking at everything only through the lens of what is the impact on my child.
Yep.
But yeah, I've learned to just, allow Saban, to really navigate that. And there is a level of, I think, maturity that he has to be able to navigate whatever, he may be going through. And if he needs advice, certainly, we'll talk through it and process it. But yeah, it's tough. I think you have to put yourself in the position of, the coach, and just recognizing you're only seeing one piece of it.
So, what advice would you give to a player on how to deal with a tough teammate?
Yeah. Um, so I can take a playbook from, like, all my professional work and my professional career, right? I'm always an advocate of just being upfront and just having the direct conversation. Because if you don't have the direct conversation, or if you don't try to, talk it out, or at least, get some form of common ground, it'll show up in other ways.
Yeah.
The unspoken tension will show up. And at the end of
Right.
the day, I mean, what you said is that that's your teammate, and you all have to come together for the good of the team, and ultimately to win. And the coaching staff and everyone else is looking at how you're able to navigate team dynamics, especially if you're a leader in a leadership role or leadership position in the team. And so how you handle and manage, those team dynamics, it can be an example for either rookies that are coming up, or, if you find yourself, if the player's in the position where, they're the veteran, they're setting that example. But I think there's also a way to go about it. In the moment, is probably not the best, but, call them aside and just say, hey, let's talk this out. But definitely not addressing it is probably not the best approach.
Yeah, no, it should always be addressed. And in conclusion, my last question to you, Natalie. If you could only give one piece of advice to another courtside mom, what would it be?
Hmm. Allow your son or daughter to own their journey. Allow them to own, their journey. And sometimes when we have a tendency to overstep or over interject, it could be robbing them of growth that they need on their path. And just trust that what got them there will continue to sustain them moving forward. And sometimes, when we provide, I'll say, over advice, because we always want to provide that meaningful advice and words of wisdom. But when we provide unsolicited advice consistently, your son or daughter could think that there's that lack of trust,
Mhm.
in their ability to really own their path. And so just some of it is just to let it evolve, and that it is their journey, it is their path. And sometimes letting go and allowing them, to experience that, and trusting um, that they know um, what they need to do, um, is probably, I think, the best advice I could give.
That is so true. It's that moment where we can recognize what we've done, and now for us to step back and say, "Okay, I've given you what I can. I've given you what I know. Now just go do you and
Right.
be you. I love you regardless.
Absolutely.
However your journey, you know what I mean, starts and ends. I'm still going to be here as mom." So I love, love, love that advice, and thank you. And we wish you both nothing but the best, and we look forward to seeing more and more of Saban and what's to come in his future in the NBA and beyond. So, with that said, thank you so, so, so much for coming on Courtside Moms and just explaining to all of us how you've raised your son and what your vision was and what his vision was and how that together got him this awesome journey through this awesome journey of being a professional athlete and living the dream that he said he wanted, that started at that basketball game that you had for him when
Oh
he
my
was
goodness.
teeny tiny. So thank you so much, Natalie, for coming on Courtside Moms.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.